Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Late Cassette Podcast. Today, I'll be discussing The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor. Now, as I said last week, this movie falls outside of the video cassette timeline a little bit, being released in 2008. But I figured it's worth covering, and I want to talk more about what was going on in movies and at the time. More on that after I cover the movie. In between The Mummy Returns and The Mummy Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, there was a cartoon that ran for 2 years on Kids WB and Fox 8 from 2001 until 2003, and there was a ride at Universal. And that some of the other media that The Mummy had. In May 2004, 3 years after the release of The Mummy Returns, Stephen Sommers, director of the first two Mummy movies, expressed doubt about doing another one, but said the cast was still interested. However, he did review a script in December 2005 written by Alfred Goh and Miles Miller about a Chinese mummy. This idea is based on real-life Qin Emperor Qin Shi Huang, Huang, who was buried with thousands of crafted and fired terracotta soldiers called the Terracotta Army. In March 2006, Oded Fehr, who played Ardith Bey in the first two movies, revealed Sommers told him that his character would not be returning. In January 2007, Universal announced Sommers would not be directing the film and announced that Rob Cohen would be the director. In April of 2007, Brendan Fraser rejoined the cast. However, Rachel Weisz did not, citing problems with the script and having just recently given birth. In the same month, Luke Ford was cast as the adult Alex O'Connell. In May, Maria Bello was cast as the new Evie. Jet Li was cast as the Dragon Emperor, named Han, and Michelle Yeoh was also cast as Z, as an immortal witch with powers, and Isabella Leong as her daughter. I did some research on the Rachel Weisz having a baby. She had the baby, I believe, in 2006, so she probably didn't want to leave the child or, whatever in the script, but it makes for a little bit of an awkward presentation with a new Rachel, or with a new Evie, sorry. The film was shot in Montreal and China, with Chinese cultural advisors aiding the crew in depicting the Qin dynasty language and ceremonies. The crew had to frequently halt production in and near Shanghai when soldiers marched. The desert battlefield setting at the end was a training facility the Chinese army leased. And a little bit of trivia, the Egyptian-themed nightclub the O'Connells visit is named Imhotep's. The Tomb of the Dragon Emperor was released on July 24th in Moscow and August 1st in the United States in 2008. It made $40 million its opening weekend. However, it did not win the box office because we can't forget the summer of 2008 was the summer of The Dark Knight, which won the weekend with $42 million in its third week of release. The film did, however, set opening records in Korea, Russia, Spain, and Thailand. The film only made $102 million in the United States, but did almost $300 million overseas, bringing its total to $401 million. It is the lowest grossing movie in the trilogy. Now, to get into the movie, we begin in China with some other fucker narrating about an ancient civil war. We see Emperor Han as a master swordsman who slices some assassins sent to kill him. Much like Squirps in the previous movie, he conquers all his enemies, and he then enslaves them to build the Great Wall. When they die or become useless, he buries them beneath the wall. He finds some fuckers to teach him how to master the elements. He sends his right-hand man and best friend, General Ming, to go find a witch rumored to know the secret of eternal life. He then takes the witch to meet the Emperor, who then tells Ming no man is to touch her as he intends to make her his wife. So they all set out to find the secret of eternal life, and they do find it. And the book she has an ancient text that looks like a book of fucking popsicle sticks. The witch tells the Emperor she wishes to spend her life with General Ming in return for giving him eternal life, which he agrees to. She casts a spell on him, and then he takes her out onto a balcony, which got me thinking there are lots of fucking balconies in these movies, and shows her Ming, who has all his limbs tied to horses, and they do the thing where they make the horses run, thus tearing him apart. He stabs the witch, but she has placed a curse on him and his army, and we get some bad CGI as the Emperor looks like he's turning into chocolate and catches fire. Now, of course, this curse can't be broken or he will rise up, enslave mankind, it'll be an apocalypse, and yada yada. You know the deal with these movies. Which, they put... Some of these curses are just so fucking stupid, but whatever. Now we flash forward to 1946, and we see Rick hilariously attempting to fly fish. He hooks himself in the neck, he gets his line stuck in a tree, before finally resorting to shooting the fucking fish. The O'Connells have a butler now, which is interesting. Like they got even more wealthy since the end. Rick looks at his old French Foreign Legion outfit in the closet, and he pines for the glory days. Which I am as well at this point in the movie, when these fucking movies were awesome. Evie is now a successful author, having penned 2 books, The Mummy and The Mummy Returns, in which she is portrayed as a big-titted blonde on the cover of the books, which is interesting. She is having a book reading, and a woman at the reading asks her if the character of Scarlet, who is the main character in her book, is based on her. And Evie responds, she is a completely different person, which is a cute little nod to Evie being a different actress and pretty much a different character entirely in this movie. Back at home, Rick and Evie have dinner and both pretend to be happy in retirement. Seems they retired after World War II. They have a conversation about not hearing from Alex. Seems like he's dropped out of college and the only time that they hear from him is when he needs money or something of that nature. Evie reveals she has writer's block as she had promised a 3rd book, but with no new adventures, she can't come up with anything. In China, Alex is leading a dig team along with his professor that has located Han's tomb. Evie tries to come up with new ideas, but still nothing. She comes down to get some inspiration from Rick. That's a dinner conversation they had where Rick wants to inspire her, but she intends to just sit in front of the typewriter. Rick is fast asleep. And we cut back to China. Alex and his professor enter the tomb. They were looking for the entrance when they cut there briefly before. And it's here I noticed that Alex doesn't have an English or British accent in this movie, despite the child Alex having an accent in the movie before, because, well, fuck continuity. They set off some booby traps in the tomb, but do find the terracotta army. A few of the diggers are killed by more booby traps, arrows flying out of, like, dragon-looking mouths, and looks like a repeat of the acid bit where it comes through the floor from the first movie. But Alex and his professor rotate a giant bull in the middle of the room and opens up a door, and Alex falls through and finds the Emperor. However, his professor is attacked by a ninja-looking motherfucker, and this ninja jumps Alex. He has a chance to take out the attacker, but hesitates when he sees it's a woman. He pulls her mask off, her mask falls off. I don't remember exactly how it happened, but he sees she's a woman and he don't want to take her out. Well, he wants to take her out, but in a different way. His professor awakens and opens fire on her, and she flees. Back in England, a man comes to see the O'Connells to ask them to deliver something to Shanghai, which turns out to be the Eye of Shangri-La. They initially refuse, but agree when he says it could be dangerous because they love that shit. And because Jonathan now lives in Shanghai, so they could visit. Just looking for excuses to get back up there, because as soon as the guy says it could be dangerous, it's more noticeable on Rick, but he really perks up, and it's quite obvious they're bored. But now in Shanghai, we go to Imhotep's bar, like I mentioned earlier, which is owned by Jonathan. And it's really gratuitous. You see Imhotep's in like neon light outside, but the first time I watched this movie a few years ago, I didn't even catch it, probably because I was about as bored as the O'Connells were. I didn't catch it till this viewing, which I only did see this movie one time before I watched it for the podcast. But we do see Egyptian themes everywhere, and the bartenders wearing hats similar to Benny's in the first movie, which does have Imhotep's on the hat, so it's kind of sad I didn't catch it the first time, but like I said, I was fucking bored and only half paying attention. Alex goes to the club to see his uncle, but goes off to seek the attention of a young lady. Rick and Evie walk in right after, and as Jonathan is frantically trying to explain that he didn't know Alex was here, Alex comes flying through a door, crashing through a table. Just as Rick is about to take out Alex's attacker, they recognize each other, as they both served in the French Foreign Legion. Rick scolds Alex about going back to college. This is where we see the tension among the family, and Alex storms off. Rick and Evie then go up to the roof and have a conversation about how to try to fix it. The next day at an outpost in western China, we are introduced to our human villain, General Yang. He implies he has a spy and intends to steal the Eye of Shangri-La from the O'Connells. Jonathan drops Rick, Evie, and Alex off in his Rolls Royce to see Alex's discovery. Rick tries awkwardly to bond with Alex. We see our ninja in the museum all dressed up this time, looking ladylike, not to try and sound sexist or anything, but she's definitely not dressed like she was previously. Alex's professor appears and seems to be an old friend of the O'Connells, but he turns a gun on them as General Yang and his second-in-command enter the room. I looked, I don't believe she's named, and Rick calls her Ying, but I don't know if that was just some light racism or what, but I couldn't find a name for this lady. It turns out the eye contains an elixir from the pool of eternal life, and he needs Evie to open it up to wake the Emperor. Turns out you need a pure heart to open it. Evie proves that she has one by jumping in front of Yang's gun when he has it pointed at Rick. Alex goes to talk to his attacker from the tomb and learns her name is Lin. They watch as Yang and Roger force them to wake the Emperor. They cut Evie's finger and the eye opens up and they force Rick to open the sarcophagus. As soon as the eye touches the Emperor, he will awake. Just as Rick is about to be shot by Roger, Alex and Lin swoop down on ropes to save him. Swoop down and pretty much kick him over and whatnot. The Emperor awakens after the eye smashes into him, but he was not in the sarcophagus, but rather sitting on the front of the horse-drawn carriage. What was in the sarcophagus was the decoy. Which, I don't exactly know how that works either, because the whole army was pretty much frozen and became terracotta or whatever after the curse sort of took them over. So I don't know who placed them or anything like that. Yang pledges himself to the Emperor and he accepts, but beheads Roger as he tries to jump on the carriage. It's probably the most violent thing we've seen in the movie. It wasn't that bad, but that beheading was definitely something else. I wasn't expecting it the first time I saw it. Alex and Lin jump on the underneath of the carriage, and Rick and Evie commandeer a firework truck to chase the Emperor down. Jonathan jumps on the truck after his car is destroyed by the Emperor's carriage. He was riding beside it, and beside it where it was parked, and it's some kind of long, sharp pole sticking out, and it just tore the shit out of the side of the car. And Evie seems to know the streets of Shanghai pretty well, as she takes a shortcut and ends up in front of the Emperor's carriage, and she calls out that she's taking a shortcut. So she's been here before, I guess, or just studies maps of the roads of Shanghai. Rick jumps on one of the horses and attempts to save Alex, but the horse is beheaded after they pass through a low hanging beam, something of that nature. Lynn is in possession of the only weapon that can kill the Emperor, a dagger, with that we learn her mother has enchanted or cursed, however you want to say it, bewitched. And after the two fail to kill him, Yang detaches part of the carriage that has Alex and Lynn on it, and the carriage and the firework truck Evie and Jonathan were in explode. They run into each other coming from opposite ends and explode just as all the parties have jumped to safety, causing a big explosion. Fireworks everywhere. It's a very good chase sequence here. I really did enjoy this part quite a bit. It's probably the best action sequence of the movie, in my opinion. Back at Jonathan's bar, they bicker about who is to blame, and they try to come up with a plan. Lin reveals if the Emperor drinks from the pool of eternal life, he will raise his army. They have to go to the Himalaya mountains to a golden tower and place the Diamond of the Eye on top of the tower to point the way to Shangri-La. Rick calls his old buddy, who tried to fuck up Alex at the beginning, Mad Dog. And they are in a shitty plane with a cow, which is just weird. Mad Dog travels with a cow, apparently. And they kind of crash land, almost skidding off a cliff. Then we do get a comedy gag of the cow having thrown up on Jonathan. I believe he says the yak yacked. Yang is introducing Emperor Han to the modern world, or Han, and he wants to serve as Han's general. You could say he wants a Han job. It's a terrible joke, I know. Yang says the diamond will point the way to the pool. Mad Dog alerts Rick from the plane that Yang has arrived via some kind of walkie-talkie or phone type thing. And the O'Connell crew makes a camp for the night, and Alex and his mother have an awkward conversation about his sex life, sort of. Alex and Lynn tell each other they have no interest in each other, even though they clearly do. And Jonathan flirts with the cow. The next morning they find the gateway. Jonathan tells the cow, he screams, "Go be free," why was Mad Dog traveling with the cow? Why would Jonathan release it right there? It just doesn't make any fucking sense. The next morning, they find the gateway, like I said, and this time Alex has an armory of his own. Him and his father bond over the guns. Jonathan is wearing a very fucking ugly looking Christmas sweater. And Alex and Rick bicker about a plan as Evie and Lynn plant explosives around the Golden Tower. The O'Connell crew wait while Han's crew approaches. The Emperor demands Yang prove himself by clearing a path to the tower, and a giant gunfight breaks out. Alex proves to be an excellent marksman like his father, as the two take out bazookas by shooting the shit out of them. Shooting them all up, and then when they go to fire the what's inside, they just explode right in the guys who were shooting them's faces. Lynn does some yelling in Chinese, and fucking Yetis come and take out some of Han's crew. Jonathan lights the fuse to blow the tower, but the Emperor causes icicles to come up from the snow because he's a master of all the elements. And he scares off the Yetis by doing some kind of weird scream. He also causes snow to fall, extinguishing the fuses on the dynamite. After a valiant fight from the O'Connells, Han places the diamond on top of the tower and sees the way to Shangri-La. Han throws a sword at Alex, who is swinging dynamite with a grenade attached to it, but Rick pushes Alex out of the way, thus causing the sword to go right through him. The blade of the sword, the tip of it anyway. The grenade causes an avalanche, and the Yetis come back and shield the O'Connells from it. Jonathan ends up with the diamond, proving his treasure hunting ways haven't changed at all. And the Yetis carry Rick to a cave in Shangri-La. And it's here where we meet the witch again, who is Lin's mother. She helps Rick, and he survives his wound. Here it is revealed that Ming is Lin's father, and the Yeti brought the witch to the pool to save her from the stabbing at the hand of Han. The woman reveals to Alex they guarded the tomb for over 2,000 years. Lin tells Alex she can't be with him because she is immortal and he will eventually die, and her mother's mourned her father for thousands of years, and it would just be a bad deal for her. Rick wakes up, and he and Alex have a nice father-son bonding moment, finally. And Z tells her daughter if they defeat the Emperor that she wants her to give up her immortality. Suddenly, Han attacks them. Han guesses Lin is Ming's daughter and enters the pool. He then takes the form of a fucking three-headed dragon. Wonder if that's would be copyright or trademark infringement on the Godzilla franchise. I'm not sure, but it happens. But he kidnaps Lin, and he flies away with her and Yang on his back. Mad Dog then flies them to where the Emperor will raise his army. How they got a hold of Mad Dog so quick is a mystery. Don't fucking know. And Z reveals that the army is not indestructible until they cross the wall, and she will raise the souls of the enslaved soldiers that are buried under the wall to help battle Han's army. The Emperor lands and takes human form and awakens his army. And there is a whole fuck pile of them, thousands and thousands. Z awakens the soldiers and sacrifices her and Lin's immortality to do so, which I thought that she would sacrifice, that she wanted Lin to sacrifice her immortality if they beat the Emperor, but nah, I guess she just said fuck it. And Lin, I don't know, I guess she didn't know this, which that would have been, if had she gotten killed in the battle, like hypothetically, that would have been, a hell of a way to find out. But anyway. Han gives what seems to be a Hitler-esque speech to his undead army. Rick and Evie run into battle with the army of the undead soldiers raised by Z and led by General Ming. Meanwhile, Alex disguises himself as a member of Yang's crew to free Lin. Han and Z engage in a sword fight that ultimately ends in her death, but not before she steals the dagger that can kill him. Rick and Evie fight off some of the soldiers while Jonathan and Mad Dog make passes in the plane, taking out some of the mummies. Han's shape shifts again, trying to take down the plane, and Lin and Alex arrive on motorcycles after he frees her, saving his parents as they are about to be killed. Lin spots her mother, and Z gives her the dagger as she dies in Lin's arms. Jonathan drops a bomb on Yang and his second-in-command as Rick and Alex go to stop the Emperor in his temple. The Emperor shapeshifts again into a sort of Yeti-like figure and stops them. Lin and Evie are jumped by Yang and his second-in-command, but they get him caught in like a giant wooden gear, and I guess this is his wife or his girlfriend, or she's just in love with him, but she won't let go of him even after he tells her to, and they are both crushed to death by this thing. And I get it. It's a good death, but that kind of makes me wonder, is she pure of heart too? Because she didn't sacrifice herself to save him, but She sacrificed herself to die with him. I don't know. It's just kind of one of those weird things. I don't know if they didn't think about it or they just didn't give a fuck. Probably the latter. But Rick and Han fight, with Rick and Alex eventually stabbing him from the front and back. The dagger has broken, killing the Emperor and his army. Lynn sees her father right before the good undead army evaporate into sand. Now we go back to Imhotep's. Mad Dog is now in charge of the bar. Jonathan said he could have it while they were flying the plane in battle. Alex and Lynn dance and share a kiss, while Rick and Evie also dance together and have a kiss at the end. Jonathan catches a cab with his diamond and declares that he's making his way to Peru where there is no mummies. Some text comes up that says, soon after mummies were found in Peru, and cue the credits. Now, some of the positives: Rick O'Connell is still fun, but more subdued, which is probably intentional given where he and Evie are at the beginning of the movie. Maria Bello is a decent Evie, but it's not the same without Rachel Weisz. The chemistry is just not there for me. Jonathan is still lovable, but also more subdued. I do like the bar being called Imhotep's as it's a nice little nod, and I think Jet Li was a good villain. The action sequences are pretty good, especially that chase scene through the streets of Shanghai. Now the negatives. It really doesn't feel like a mummy movie. It doesn't take place in Egypt, and it just doesn't have the same feel. It also really bugs me that Alex doesn't have the accent. I don't know why, but it just bugs the shit out of me. Now, I may not have noticed that as quickly had I not watched these movies so close together, but I did, and it annoys me. This movie really doesn't seem like it's about the O'Connells as much as it's about Lynn and Z, which makes kind of an oddball entry in the series. The story is more about them, and the O'Connells are there to help. No Ardith Bay, like, what the fuck? He's one of my favorite characters from the series, and not having him hurts this movie in my opinion. But I guess why the fuck would he be in Shanghai? And I guess Lynn is supposed to serve as the Ardith Bay type character in this movie because, got to get Alex laid and relationship off. CGI doesn't look awesome, especially whenever Han is turns into the terracotta guy at the beginning. It literally looks like CGI chocolate. It's pretty bad. But the biggest negative of this movie is time. Time meaning they waited way too long to make a sequel to The Mummy Returns, or to even make another one at all. The first two are, to me at least, hallmarks of the late 90s, early 2000s, and this one just feels kind of random 7 years later. Now, overall, the movie has fun moments, and had it been released in maybe 2004, 2005, and kept a little bit more of the spirit of the first two, with it being so long in between, it doesn't really feel like the same franchise. Looking at 2008 overall, like I said earlier, it was the summer and really the year of The Dark Knight. And that was the movie everyone was talking about in 2008. We also had Iron Man that year, which was the first step in the MCU. And people wanted something different than what we had 8-9 years earlier. And you gotta remember, it's post 9/11. The Mummy Returns came out in May 2001, and that's before 9/11, and those conspiratorial movies were in vogue then. I don't know if it was a post 9/11 paranoia or what, but I think that plays a little bit of a role. And the Judd Apatow comedies were in full effect that year as well. We had Pineapple Express and Forgetting Sarah Marshall. And the inspiration for the 1999 movie Indiana Jones, that sequel came out that summer as well, or that year. The superhero craze was getting ramped up, and they just waited way too long, in my opinion. This movie does have some good moments, and a sequel was planned, and it was to be called The Mummy: Rise of the Aztec, with Fraser, Bello, Hannah, who's the brother, and Ford all coming back, and Antonio Banderas was to play the villain. However, the sequel was canceled in 2012 rather, and Universal decided to reboot the series to be a part of their new Dark Universe. Bad call, Universal. The Tom Cruise movie bombed and totally tanked the so-called Dark Universe. But this Fraser-led trilogy endures and is a seminal spot for me and millions of other people, I'm sure. I give this movie a thumbs in the middle. I can't totally give it an up or down because there isn't too much good to give it a thumbs up and there isn't too much bad to give it a thumbs down. It's just kind of okay. However, I give the trilogy a thumbs up overall, as I was very excited to cover these, especially the first one. Well, now that The Mummy is wrapped up, and with summer being here, about to be here, and with lots of people heading to the beach, I figured it's appropriate, and to get in the mood, cover maybe the first summer blockbuster ever, Jaws. Yes, July will be Jaws month, and I'll cover all four of those bad boys beginning next week on the Late and Cassette podcast. And don't forget to check me out on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.